Here we go!
Hi guys, welcome back to another interview, and today we're joined by AFC and GTFP LHW Champion Branden Guest. Thank you for joining us. How's things?
Yeah, everything's good. Just coming back to training this week. Did a grueling 2.5 hours session the other day, and I've not been able to walk since.
I see, obviously I was seeing your Instagram that you're healing up. Do you always are you quite good on the recovery side of things? Is that quite important for your game? Just after obviously hard training sessions.
Yeah, I like to especially like take things like ice baths and stuff like that for like leg recovery, because when you're doing a lot of kicks and that every day, like you need to recover. Like if you're training six days a week, recovery is one of the biggest things that you need. Like because if you don't, you're not going to be able to train. You're not going to be able to fight, and it's not good for any athlete.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, is the recovery thing quite? How often do you train? Do you sometimes obviously you mentioned like if you have an injury, do you just like recover and then just kind of deal with it? Especially in camps, do you just kind of recover and then hope maybe the next day that you'll maybe feel a bit fresher?
I train like, especially coming up to a fight, I train 6 days a week, but most of the time it's like 5 days a week training. Depending on what the injury is, if it's something to do with like my ankles, which is normally a thing to go, because obviously you've got a lot of weight on there all the time and all this movement and that. If I do get an injury, I just try and avoid it for a bit. I try to keep up with training, because if I have time off, I just feel like my fitness is just going to go downhill. So I keep training, but just try to avoid using that part of my body. Yeah, man.
Yeah, no, of course. Just try to work around the injury.
Yeah, working around it all the time.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, at the moment you've obviously got your 2 titles on 2 separate promotions. How has things been, champ, and ever since you have been? Do you feel any kind of sort of added pressure, knowing that obviously these light heavyweights were in the position that you were once in, looking to get that title shot and get them title fights to kind of propel them a little bit?
I don't feel pressured. No, like obviously there's people who want to. That they even message me and stuff. They want to come for them title shots, and I said to them, just like we'll put on a show. I'm not bothered. I'm there to fight anyone. I want to move up the ranks. So I'm looking for like people who are more experienced than me at minute, even better records than me, just to step forward. I want them fights, and I want to move up to that #1 spot before turning pro.
Yeah. So did you mention that you have Upandcomers actually messaging you personally asking?
Yeah, I've had a few people message me, not being disrespectful or anything. They've been all right with me. They just want, they're like, I reckon I want to fight you for a title. Me and you are both like strikers. I want to fight you. I reckon we'll come put on a show. And I'm just like, go for it. I'm like, let's put a name forward.
How do you find that? Because like obviously in the sport of MMA, luckily it is compared to boxing, especially, it is quite a respectful sport. So I can see why you do that. But does that ever kind of catch you off guard a little bit? Like, to me, that's the first I've heard of people directly messaging you and being kind about it. They're not just calling your name and trying to get you to maybe be aggravated to want to fight them. Does that kind of set you off a little bit?
Not really, because I'm fairly respectful as it is. I don't like we're all in there for the same stuff. We're not in there to hate each other. We're in there to just have fun and get the job done. So I don't have any disrespect towards anyone. If they have it towards me, fair enough. I'll step away from them a bit. If they want to fight me and they do have the disrespect, I'll fight them. But I prefer people to be respectful. As you said, it is a respectful sport, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen in some of your fights, like you've gone to touch gloves with people, and some people just shake their head at you. It kind of confused me.
Yeah.
Does your mindset change when people are like that, or are you just kind of the same for everybody?
I hate it. Yeah, I really do. I hate people who just like they won't touch gloves at the beginning of a round, stuff like that. You might have seen in one of my other fights, like touching gloves every round, even like before the 5th round and that, just going out hugging it out in the middle before the round, saying good luck to each other, like, because end of the day, like I said, we're in there for the same thing. Like there's no hate towards each other whatsoever.
Yeah, it's good that you could do that because, like I say, some fighters. I believe the fight you're talking about is the fight that I was going to go on to mention, where you knock the guy out completely flat. It's weird that some fighters do that, but to you, it's just all the same. Obviously, you don't have any kind of. When someone doesn't touch gloves, does that kind of think you? Does that get your back up, or is it just like, okay, whatever? Like it is what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of more. It is what it is. Like you don't want to get annoyed over it, because if you start to lose your rag a bit when you're in there, it drains you more as well. Like you don't want to be angry when you're in ring. I've learned that. I did, like, in a few of my first ones, I did get a bit angry in that, but now I've calmed down a lot, and it tends to work out better for me every time.
Yeah, I think fighting with a clear head, especially, you hear most fighters say that they go in there with anger. It can sometimes kind of blur your vision, and you don't see things coming. You don't see the fights as well. I just wanted to, obviously, you mentioned in some of the earlier fights, you had, obviously, you couldn't help it. It was due to COVID, but you started. I think your amateur debut was in 2017, and then obviously I think you fought 2 or 3 fights, and then obviously you had quite a lot of cancelled bouts and things like that. That time off, would you say that was good for you to improve, or did you kind of struggle in that time where obviously there was quite a gap between, obviously you had COVID and things like that, you had cancelled bouts? Do you think that helped you, or was that kind of frustrating not being able to get in there when you train obviously quite often?
COVID were frustrating because I think it was just before beginning of lockdowns and stuff when I had that my first title win. So it was just before that, I had that, and I thought, right, I'm on a spree now. I'm gonna get all these fights in. I'm gonna start hunting for more titles and stuff. And then when COVID hit, it knocked me off track. I was training at home for quite a long time, and it's not the same. Like you couldn't get the kind of training that you do get in a gym. Like no matter how much you try, you're doing bag work and that, and it's nothing compared to actually training with people. And so it did knock me off track quite a lot.
Yeah, and with that now, obviously, fingers crossed, we're all hoping that the rest of this year we can have a full fighting year and things like that. Do you have any plans or anything scheduled that you any dates in mind where you want to kind of get things done and get goals achieved by a certain point this year?
I'm looking to fight like the first one of this year, probably around February, March time. Definitely, it won't be any later than March, but I want to get at least 4 fights this year before making my pro debut at the beginning of 2023.
Right, so you just touched on that. You'd like to have the pro debut at the end of 2023. So
beginning.
My apologies. Beginning of 2023. Just also, I've recently seen that you've been training at HD with head coach Marc Diakiese. What is it like to get that opportunity at this stage of your career? And how much do you take from being around his fighters and him himself?
He's a good lad. He obviously you know how good he is and that. So when you're sparring with him, when you're training under him and that, you do learn a lot. There's little things that he's picked up on me which I've not seen myself. Like even dropping my hand slightly when doing moves and stuff, and he's saying like, look, you can get clocked doing this, so you need to make sure that you're keeping that hand up. And he's got some really good sessions. Obviously, he's trained around the world and that, so he's took all these little bits and put them all together, and some really good sessions. Some big lads in there that I like to train with. Some of them that I used to train with as well. So it's good to see them old faces back again.
Yeah, and watching some of your fights, I couldn't help but after seeing, especially that you were training with Marc Diakiese, parts of his game that kind of come out in yours. As for a light heavyweight or a heavyweight, you're very light on your feet. You like to switch stances, it seems. Is that something that you picked up from himself, or is that just something that you've always kind of wanted to have in your game?
I've come from a kickboxing background, so I've always been the same. I've always been on my toes, back and forth, a lot of kicking and stuff like that. That's just the style I've been brought up with.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing working with them is just going to propel that kickboxing knowledge that you already have to another level. So obviously we touched on it earlier, the fight where you hugged and it was very respectful. I believe it was David Wilkinson. I think it was the guy
David
you fought.
Wilkinson, yeah.
Obviously in that fight, that was for your first title, which is obviously behind you, the almighty title. And like I said, you knocked him out in spectacular fashion, and then you went on to claim your second title, which was a full 5-round war, where you give quite a bit, and obviously you took some as well. And then obviously in your most recent fight, you won by submission. Now they're all different kind of styles of fights. Obviously, one was by a real heavy knockout, one was by a complete war, and then other by kind of a first round decision, which is quite quick. Do you like the fact that you're able to show different parts of your game and not just be known as kind of a really hard hitter or a decision fighter? Do you like that you're able to kind of switch it up?
Yeah, there's not a lot of people at all that have seen like what I can do on the ground. Like I've trained for probably about seven or 8 years in grappling and in BJJ. I've gained my purple belt, and not a lot of people have ever seen that, because I don't really go down to the floor much. I like everyone who I've fought, especially as bigger guys, we're all strikers.
Mm-hmm.
So to have that knowledge on the floor, and I do want to show it, but there's not a lot of people that do want to go down to the floor with me. And sometimes the bigger guys, it's like trying to take a tree down. Like we're solid. So being able to again gain that knowledge in wrestling and stuff, and being able to use less of the power and more of the technique of taking people down easier, it won't drain me as much in fights, and then I will get to show my ground game more.
Yeah, and in the fights where it did kind of go to the ground for parts of the fight, I couldn't help in most of your fights as well, especially for a person at your weight class. You don't seem to struggle massively, or at least from what I could see, on cardio. Is that something that you think is just a natural thing that you have, or do you think that that's from your hard work and conditioning that you do?
I definitely work hard for it. I'm working my ass off in the gym, like every session. Even when I come back on my first session, I'll go to pretty much the point of throwing up, because I don't want to go into a fight and empty my gas tank. In my first few fights, I didn't know what to expect, and I went into them with high hopes of, I can do 10 rounds in gym. Went into cage. Within a minute of the first round, I was fucked. So, now I know how to get my cardio in the gym for the fights, and how to keep the cardio in the fight, so I don't empty my gas tank in the first round, and I had to pace myself as well.
Yeah, and of course that's something that comes with time. So, do you think your fight management and your fight IQ is just getting better by the day?
Yeah, 100%. Every fight I've had so far, I'm gaining confidence in the fights, and I look out for a lot of things now. I don't just rush in on so if I see someone go against the cage or something like that, I'll think for a second before rushing in now. It's are they going to stand back up? Are they going to throw a punch? Are they going to throw a kick? If I don't see it, I'll rush in on them, but I don't want to rush in and land straight at the end of a punch.
Yeah, of course. So when you're in there, do you hear much? Are you one of the fighters that listen? Because I know some fighters, when they're in there, they're just kind of tunneled into the fight, and they kind of just let everything behind them just kind of black out. When you're in there, do you hear much of your coaches speaking? Because I've heard them shouting things at you in your fights. Do you hear that much, or is it just kind of you're in there and you read it for yourself?
Sometimes it is hard to hear because obviously crowd shouting and this and other. You don't really hear much of it, but I tend to listen to their coaches a lot more as well, because if their coach is telling him to go for something, I know what to look out for them. So I don't know if my opponents are going to do the same thing back with listening to my coaches waiting for me. But on my second title fight, I spent a lot of time trying to turn him round into my corner and keep him against my side of the cage all the time, so I could hear my coaches because I was right next to him, and it worked a lot better, because obviously when you're at far side of the cage over their corner, your coaches are shouting, you can't hear a thing.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good kind of game plan to have to implement, and especially if you're fighting a fighter that likes to fight against the cage. In a few of your fights, they don't seem to like you're quite a rangy fighter, and like I said, you're quite loose on your feet and things, and you do catch people coming in, like that KO that you had that was completely spectacular, and you knocked him completely flat out. You caught him coming in, so that's definitely a great way to do it. Also, I noticed that you fought in 3 different weight classes. Now I know you started at middleweight, which was back in 2017.
Yeah.
You progressed to then light heavyweight, where you got both your titles. And your most recent fight was at heavyweight. Do you have a kind of a place where you're set and you want to fight at, or at the moment in your amateur career, you're just looking to get bouts, whether that be heavyweight, light heavyweight?
Yeah. So my last fight that I had no choice but to fight heavyweight. Like, with the amount of time that I had to try and get a fight, the matchmaker would trying to get me a fight at light heavyweight, and there were no one that wanted to fight me, basically. So the only option was, like, here's a guy at heavyweight, it's either fight him or fight no one. So I had no choice, really. I'm happy to fight at heavyweight. I've done it in MMA now. I've done it in boxing as well. So I've been there. I've fought at heavyweight. Obviously, there's no weight cut or anything like that, so you're not going to worry about any of that. You just got to worry about your fitness and getting in there. Middleweight, it's a bit hard for me to get down to middleweight now. I feel like I lose my strength in that. But I am looking next year, because some of the promotions have added in a super middleweight category now, so 88 kilo. So I am looking to fight at 88 as well as the light heavyweight category, which is my main one.
Yeah, so obviously you mentioned when you go down to middleweight, especially now, you feel a bit drained. Is light heavyweight where you feel maybe your fittest? Because obviously I know for your heavyweight, your first with the most recent fight, which was at heavyweight, you wasn't in there for too long. Luckily, you got them out there in the first round. Did you feel any different regarding your gas tank? Were you a bit more concerned, a bit more conservative, knowing that obviously you've got a bit more weight to carry if the fight was to go a little bit longer?
Yeah, and if the fight were to go 3 rounds, I could have done 3 rounds, but my gas tank were nothing compared to what I wore at light heavyweight. Like, light heavyweight, I'm definitely at my fittest, at my strongest. I just feel I felt slow, like sluggish at heavyweight. I don't enjoy it.
So even though there's less of a weight cut, do you feel more confident at the light heavyweight then?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, and obviously, I know you mentioned that you're looking to get back in there in March. Do you have any? I know you only fought last month. Are you looking to take the time off, or are you just literally looking to, if someone comes to you with a fight in March, where a lot of the promotions are running, are you looking to get back in there at light heavyweight? When a fighter says yes to fight you. Yeah,
light heavyweight's my category. I'm looking for a fight at that now. At this point, I want anyone who's above me on the official rankings. I'm saying that, like, you see some of them, yeah, they might have gone 8-1 or something like that, but you look at their opponents' combined records, and they've not been fighting anyone with a decent record. So these kind of people who are up the ranks, I want to fight them. I want to see what they're made of.
Yeah, definitely. So have you struggled to find fights at light heavyweight? Obviously, I know you mentioned that you only took the heavyweight fight mainly down to that was the only one that was around that promoters were offering you. Do you think as your career goes on, and especially when you're holding 2 belts, are you struggling to find people that are above you that are willing to take the risk and come fight you?
I've see when I go on to like put my name down for a show, the matchmakers do come back to me like now. Before it wasn't really a problem. Now it's starting to get a problem. Like they're struggling to find me matches. It goes on for like 3-4 weeks, and they're like, "We still ain't got you a fight yet. We're still looking. We're trying to find you a fighter. We can't really get you one. You might have to fight it a different way." And it's I don't know. It's a bit frustrating on my side because it might end up turning pro a bit further forward for me. So I might have to turn pro this year, depending on if I can get a fight or if I can't.
So yeah, as you mentioned, obviously you wanted to do it at the beginning of 2023, but if there's just no amateurs that are willing to fight you, would you just kind of bring that forward just so you can even really get a fight?
Yeah, not really. I won't really have a choice, to be fair. If there's no fighters out there, it's just going to prolong my career. I'm just going to be stuck at amateur waiting for a fight. That's never going to happen, basically. And if I do, it's going to be someone who's just coming into it. It might be like someone making a debut, someone who's further down ranks, and it don't really look good on my behalf. But one of the lads who I train with, he was exactly the same. He fights at light heavyweight. He was looking for a fight on the same show at amateur, and he's got a lot more experience. And they said to him, "Look, we can't get you a match at light heavyweight. You're gonna have to turn pro." So he just ended up turning pro for it.
So it seems that some of the fighters are just not even. It's not even when they say, "Okay, I'm ready." It's just promoters telling them you've kind of not got much choice. Is that like I said? Obviously, you said it was frustrating before. Is it annoying that you look at other fighters that maybe have good records and things like that, amateurs, like you say, that above you in the rankings, and do you ever think like, why? We're all fighters. We're all in here, like you said, for the same thing. Does it frustrate you that these fighters won't fight when they've got these good records?
I understand some people have got other fights on, like if they're in a different area to me, like if they're down south or something like that. There's different promotions around there. They might be fighting on a different promotion around the same time, so it's like they can't get a chance to fight me sometimes. So I can't really blame them, but at the same time, if they want to hold back a fight and then talk up this way, or getting the talks between the promotions and stuff like that, and they want to fight, like we'd have to sort stuff out in enough time.
Mm-hmm. So with the amateur thing, is it kind of some fighters maybe not willing to do the travel or not willing to, can you only really get fights around you? Is that kind of how it works on your side of things?
No, to be fair, it's like I've fought further away. I've fought quite a lot locally, but I've obviously the Golden Ticket show is in Wolverhampton. That's where I did that fight at. So it's like I'm willing to travel. I don't like it too much, but obviously you've got to. Some of the bigger promotions are in further places, and I'm hoping some people obviously travel as well to come up to some of these shows, because we have a lot of good shows around us. What do move around a lot, especially like All My A's, really good show, and I'm just hoping a lot more people will travel to fight.
Yeah, I can imagine that when it's kind of like, I'll come to you, but I need somebody to come this way as well. It kind of works both ways, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just lastly, outside of MMA, is there anything else that you like to do? Just away from the sport and things like that. Is there anything that you like to do to kind of keep your mind ticking, keep you busy over the periods where you just can't get fights? And I know you train consistently, but is there anything else that you like to do?
Yeah, I took up probably about a year and a half ago. I took up rock climbing as well. So it's like that's another like sport that I do outside of all this training. I just all my mates do it, so I'm just like, yeah, I'll give it a bash, and I've just stuck with it since. Like we do that weekly as well. So
I can imagine that's good as someone your size. I can imagine you can skip a few rocks compared to some other people.
Yeah, I thought it would be good for like working my grip strength and stuff like that, and like thought it might be beneficial towards implementing it into MMA as well. And I don't know, it has worked good, but it keeps my mind fresh as well.
Yeah, exactly. Something away from, because like you say, you train quite a lot, and obviously it's quite a lot in your body anyway, but it's quite a lot in your mind as well to know that you've got to do these, you've got to wake up, do the camps, and do these training sessions, come back and recover. So I guess it is nice to keep your mind ticking. But thank you very much, Branden. I'm hoping that we can get to see your fight very, very soon. Hopefully in March, when you say, and when you do, I'd love to have you come back.
Yeah, hopefully I do get a fight, and obviously it'll be posted all over my social media when I do. But hopefully one gets announced soon.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Well, thank you very much for your time, Branden, and I hope to see you again. And I hope to see you excel in 2022.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been good.
Thank you.
Thank you.